evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the live lounge without Phil Bars. That's what it is, folks. We've got rid of him for the night. Myself, Jack Gaal, joined by Lee Boyce and Cam McFarlane for the next 2 hours. Bit of Fergie time, you never know. Lee's face says no already. He'd be in a lot of trouble if we run over after the weekend that we have had. Busy. Hello to everybody in the chat room. Bob's in, Owen is in, Adrian says evening all. Frey Brandon says evening. Maliki says hi everyone. MVG going to miss the World Cup yet? One of the talking points throughout the show tonight. Mike says PB not on tonight, choosing USA instead. Terrible, completely agrees. He's a few thousand miles in the air right now. He'll no doubt find a way to sneak in. He probably knows we started a couple of minutes late. And Maliki, it was not me doing 5 hours of makeup. I was waiting on these two, actually. I've been in this show for the last 2.5 hours.
It was me.
I was ready.
Connection issues at the bottom from me, but we're here now.
Not my internet. Let's get things right. Not my internet.
Are you in his living room? Is that what it is? Are you in Gob's living room?
I'm at Gob's.
Makes sense.
That means you're going to last about 20 minutes or whatever it is we plan to do together and then disappear, because that's what you did to another one of our colleagues, isn't it, Cam?
We should probably clarify, because that could be interpreted very poorly. Yeah, sorry, Bradley.
Brad from the
very
team, Yorkshire versus Lancashire, and let's just say Cam doesn't know what the score was. He didn't see a lot of the cricket.
I do know what the score was. I watched the highlights the day afterwards, I'll have you know.
Yeah, that one. Lots and lots to talk about this evening. Obviously, there is no Phil Bars, so bear with us throughout. We'll try and get the chat room involved as ever. Should be live on social media, so if anybody wants to click that retweet and like and share and all that sort of thing, really help out so everybody can come in and watch us as well. Lee, I'll start with you. We've had a very, very busy one. Obviously, we're going to talk about the World Seniors Masters in depth, but it's another weekend away. Travelling on the road as darts can be. And decent weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a decent weekend. Plenty of darts across. We talked in beforehand about have we missed anything? There's just so much happening at the moment. Whether it be PDC, WDF, seniors. Even more announcements from the seniors today about upcoming events and what's planned there. So there's a lot that's happening at the moment, but some quality stuff. And for us, even, we was lucky enough to visit everyone Thursday night to see the Premier League. I know that's where we're going to start tonight, but it's a lot that's happened, and there's been an awful lot of quality. Just before we come on air, and I was looking through some of the stats. Even looking at that tournament average for the seniors, he's very, very impressive to see that in the 80s. He's very, very good as well. So not just the guys on the PDC doing some impressive stuff, but also across at the seniors and WDF in the past few weeks as well.
Yeah, Cam, we probably should have prearranged this a little bit, but by the way, you're our man for the Euro Tour this weekend.
Okay.
Because and I are obviously incredibly busy at the lakeside. Fantastic experience.
My memory of the weekend isn't great, I'll be honest, but I'll do my best.
Well volunteered. Yeah. Brilliant. This is how well we plan things. Superb. What a start to the show that is.
Yeah, we was able to see a few games, Dob. It was just the fact that it was one of plenty of screens that was open at the time, so key moments, and there's certainly
all over the shop.
There's certainly one special moment from Sunday that needs to be spoken about, an awful lot, but then another one will come to. You forgot about it already, looking at your face.
What did you say? I was reading. When you said we guaranteed to have forgotten something, even though I sent you a message saying, have we forgotten anything? I then realised we've forgotten something. So I've just gone to find an image of it. It's a little thing, and unfortunately we can't give you the second part of it that we normally do because I don't have that information. I'd forgotten there was a Champions Week in the Live League. As if this show isn't busy enough. Right, let's look how fancy this is, by the way. None of PBs. Look at this. Look at that. Seamless. Seamless. I've been working on this for the last couple of hours. You can tell I've had the afternoon off work. travelled back from the circus, from the lakeside this morning. Circus Tavern, I get them too. Mixed up all over the gaff. Suit fitting in Worksop of all places. Even the suit fitter was like, "You do know where this shop is," and was taking a piss out of his hometown, which was brilliant, I thought. But yeah, plenty of dart and action to talk about, and we will start in Newcastle, gents, the final night of the Premier League. And look, as an overall night, considering an awful lot of this field didn't have an awful lot to play for, I actually found this one of the more entertaining weeks of the last few weeks. Whether that was because of that second match being as crucial as it was, whether it's because we had Michael Smith finally getting over the line, as you can see, whether it's because I was beating Lee Boyce at darts in a pub at the same time, completely, it could have been any of those, right? But I really enjoyed night 16 of the Premier League. Maybe it's because we couldn't hear the commentary, Lee. I don't know how bad the commentary was. We watched all of it. We couldn't hear what anybody was saying because the pub just went for music instead. But let's start with game one. And look, despite the result, that's possibly the best I've seen Gary Anderson play in this entire campaign, Lee. He swapped back to the darts that he won the World Championship with, and something inside him just clicked.
Yeah, I know you was laughing and joking about a few things there with the Premier League, but one thing we were speaking about last week was we was probably expecting a poor week because there was people not playing for anything. Gary being one of those who, we wouldn't. I don't think any of us have been surprised if we'd have seen an 85 average Gary Anderson, similar we've seen previous playing for nothing. But actually, the no pressure for a lot of these players actually seeing a better performance than what we've seen in a few weeks. And Gary was certainly one of those. Other than the result, there's a lot of positive signs there. I said, I'm still hoping that Dando's.I bid run. A lot of people are writing him off. It's still a bid run or a bid tournament winning there. The darts fan in me is certainly hoping that that's the case. And there were signs there on Thursday that is the case, especially with those darts. It's just more about how much he's playing now leading up to the match play, which is obviously the real next big one for Dando not being in the Premier League semi-finals, and if he can go in there and have any form. But if there's probably one player in that field who can just have a very deep run or don't want to lift a trophy with no form whatsoever before it probably is him. And he showed signs there, but fair play for Johnny getting over the line. We've seen it probably in the past few weeks. Jonathan not play well and get over the line, which is a sign of a very, very good player. And Clayton done that on Thursday because Anderson was the better player for the majority of that day.
Yeah, completely agree. Cam, look, that could well be the last time we see Gary Anderson ever throw a dart in the Premier League. He hasn't taken this campaign too seriously, possibly hasn't taken the last couple of campaigns too seriously. But he has been a fantastic ambassador. And look, it's not the result we wanted to see him go out on. If this was the old format and he goes and wins a game, absolutely fine. But there was always going to be an awful lot of pressure to go out on an absolute massive high for Gary in a night when you have to win 3 games to be remembered at the end of it. I think there's enough signs there, as Lee said, to take away from that performance that it was steady enough. But again, the main concern is that, just like Lee, I think everybody is hoping we see that from Gary again. Not we will see that from Gary again, or not we know he's got the dedication or commitment to carry on. It's still hope, isn't it, at the back end of his career?
Yeah, and that's it. And this, like you say, it wasn't the result that we were hoping to get from him, but he's up against the form player in the tournament. So he put on probably his best performance of the entire 16 nights. And it was good to see him back to his best, and hopefully, like you say, using those darts again, hopefully it just clicks and we see more of it throughout this year, and we see him go out on a real high. Because realistically, even if he won this 6-0 against Johnny Clayton, it doesn't really mean anything and wouldn't have mattered towards anything. But there is still a lot in the rest of the year that does really matter, and we all want to see him in there and challenging and go out with some top quality performances.
We do indeed. A word on Johnny Clayton. Look, as you said, over the line, despite averaging less than Gary Anderson. And he's just winning right now has become a habit for Johnny Clayton, because this is going to sound crazy. I don't think he's played well for a number of weeks now. And it's not even his B game and his backup game. We've seen a level significantly above this that this might be somewhere below Plan B for Johnny Clayton, and it's still getting the job done against the best players in the world.
I still think we are seeing some very, very good stuff from Johnny. Probably not as consistent, like it says. I think I went back to the Birmingham night where he was very good, and 100 was probably his lowest average of the night, and there's probably one more of them. But there is these performances in a Premier League night, but I think he's playing, like it says, arguably he's the best player in the world over a last 6 to 12 months period. He's certainly in that conversation, and he's certainly now in a great position to go on and lift back-to-back Premier League titles. I'm still just in shock, really, of watching 16 weeks of Premier League and how little he's really been talked about as the reigning Premier League champion, other than the war-on. There's not a lot of commentary, not a lot of social media that have mentioned that actually he's the one who's got this trophy at the moment, and he's now in a great position to go and defend it in 1 week's time.
Completely agree. Someone that can't lift the title, Cam, is Peter Wright. He's beaten by Joe Cullen in that showdown match. Obviously, in the old format, this game would have been on as late as possible in the evening, get all the dead rubbers out of the way. However, the way the draw bracket works, we saw this one pretty early. Joe Cullen, magnificent on double 16.
Yeah, and that was probably really the difference. I think it was a pretty close game other than that, but when he needed it, it just bailed him out and got him over the line. And it was just that battling sort of performance we've seen from him in the last couple of weeks to keep himself in there and put himself in that. Well, unfortunately, he should really have been in pole position for that final week, but the way it panned out, it was winning you're in for both of them. And he managed to get over the line, and who's to say he doesn't go further now, because he just keeps grinding out results at the moment.
Yeah, obviously there's history in this tournament of players in their first campaign going on to lift this title or going deep on finals night. You think Johnny Clayton on his debut year, we saw Glenn Durham, we saw Jose de Souza go deep, we've seen Nathan Aspinall produce runs as well. The last couple of years, the old guard need to watch their back once these new guys come into the tournament, because they're going deep, they're making finals, and they're picking up titles as well. One of those old guards, Lee, Michael van Gerwen, defeated by Michael Smith after they clashed for the 4th consecutive week in the Premier League. Perhaps a downside of the tournament so far, but we've spoken about those enough throughout this campaign. Job done by the Bullyboy, 6-4 result for him, that kept his hopes alive of completing the set, shall we say.
Yeah, we did, and I know it was a stat that we brought to hand on Thursday, but just to repeat that stat for anyone who wasn't tuned in, but it's the first time that MVG has lost 4 consecutive games in the PDC since March 2011, which is absolutely ridiculous. Obviously, he ended that later on in the couple of days later, but he was one of the players who was unsure on the motivational levels that were probably there for MVG. Obviously, there was there for Smith to go on and be the one to complete the set. He just didn't find the levels that we'd seen back in probably the start of May, earlier in April as well, when he picked up a couple of Euro Tours and had those wins in the Premier League. Obviously, we've found out now about the injury. But other than what it's had over the 12, 18 months, probably however long he's had that for, this hasn't impacted him anymore in this time, just because we're now aware of that injury. It probably was just the fact that he was second. He couldn't move from second, and we saw a bit of a flat performance from him. But Bullyboy punished, and well done for Meekel getting over the line and then progressing into the semi-final.
Indeed, and the final match of the night, look, this one will not go down in any history books. He won't live long in the memory for a while, but for only the second time in this campaign in 7 meetings, Gerwyn Price does better James Wade. It's a little bit of a step up and improvement from James on the performance we saw from last week, Cam, but there looks clearly to be some signs that that's time spent in hospital for Wadey has just knocked him a little bit, because before that, there was a genuine conversation to be had about him being one of the most informed players in this Premier League.
Yeah, and I think we said that a few weeks in a row, that he was the man to beat at that point. He was the one that was putting in the performances and getting it done consistently, making finals. And yeah, it's just the way it's fallen for him. Getting ill at the Euro Tour event and then missing the week and coming back from there, he doesn't look anywhere near the player he was before it. And it didn't take a lot from Gezi to get over the line against him here, which has got to be a worry. I know we've got 2 weeks now until the final, until finals night in Berlin, but he looks a long way away from where he needs to be going into that. And whereas we probably had him as one of the ones you fancied to go on and win on that finals night, now you've probably got him as 4th favourite, I would say.
Indeed. Moving on to the semi-finals. This must be difficult for Gezi to watch as well, because at the time that they lifted the World Cup together, Gezi was considerably the more informed and considered the better player of the two. But Johnny Clayton's success since that moment has shot up, and once again he outshined his Welsh teammate, getting the better of Joe Cullen 6-4. Again, just a steady performance from Johnny Clayton there when it matters the most. And actually, after the emotion and the outpouring that Joe Cullen would have experienced after beating Peter Wright and setting up that spot in Berlin, you can almost forgive this one, can't you? It was job done, and anything after that is a bonus. Yeah,
it was. We expected the winner of Joe and Peter to, whoever come through that one, sort of fade in this semi-final game. Yes, there's motivation of winning the night and winning the 10K, but the difference of finishing 5th and the difference of going on to potentially now then win it, because there's no prize money for where you finish. There's, other than who you play most in form, there's no other advantage about where you finish in that league table than if Joe then does on and lifts first. It was all about getting through that game with Peter Wright, but for Johnny Clayton, it was 8 finals in the 16 weeks. So, every other Premier League Johnny Clayton has been in the final, and just that stat alone just proves why the Welshman deserve to finish top of the league.
Comfortably as well, comfortably indeed. And the other half, like we said, look, concerning times for James Wade, concerning times for Gerwyn Price as well. Didn't manage to get above the 90 mark, the final average in either of these games, but beaten comfortably by Bullyboy Michael Smith, who went in search of that first league phase night win. Again, just steady from Michael Smith, just the one maximum 42% on his doubles. The fact that Gezi's averaged 88 here and is 3 from 4 on his checkout says there's a major concern about his scoring power right now, which is traditionally the best part of his game.
Yeah, there is, but then there's also the fact that it didn't really mean anything. I think you've got a player here that it meant something to, who was the only one that hadn't won a night at this point, and one that couldn't qualify. It didn't really matter what he did, and it made no real difference. I think if we'd seen it the other way around, or if both of them were fighting to win a night when neither of them found one, maybe we'd have seen a bit more from Gezi, but I think it was probably a difficult one for him to get up for, really.
Indeed, and we'll discuss him and Peter Wright again very, very shortly. However, into the final, and look, Johnny Clayton had the throw. Job done, he's in another final, but this one just meant that little bit more to Michael Smith. Superb performance from him. There was a moment, though, Lee, I think he was 3-0 up. 4-0 up. He's pegged back to 4-3, and you go in, oh, God, we've seen this script before with Michael Smith. However, wins the next 2 legs, lifts that 10 grand bonus on the night, which also meant he picked up more money than Gerwyn Price, I think. It was a 15 grand night because it moved him up a spot in the rankings as well.
Yeah, other than if you are Welsh, everyone else in the world of darts must have wanted Michael Smith to get over the line and was thinking exactly the same at 4-3. But yeah, it was the biggest night win because of that 15k and moving up that one spot. But there's been a lot of talk about the Premier League and the pros and cons of this new format. But what it has probably shown is, as much as Dando hasn't been great, there's not many who can argue with the players who have been picked, because all of which have done and proved their worth and won a night. And for Michael Smith, it could just have a bigger impact than just winning £15,000. it could give him that extra confidence to go on and win a big TV tournament. Just that sort of know-how of getting over the line. And coming through the field that we did, you can only look on paper when you're reviewing these before Premier League night or looking back. And for Michael Smith to get through MVG, Derwin Price and Johnny Clayton, yes, Johnny Clayton's the most impressive one, but in regards to current form, but he's a very, very good win. And probably that picture that you've now put on screen probably says it all about just a bit of relief for Bullyboy getting over the line. And as we've just seen in Teresa in the chat room, finally, I think everyone was saying that. And well done to yourself, both the persons above me and below me on the screen who predicted that this would happen. Even though, Tam, you was the only one who predicted it with one guess, I do agree that Dob has, 7 or 8 pits every week, it seems.
Yeah, well, that's it. And to be fair, he didn't have him winning it either in the when we did it the Thursday before, when we did our predictions after the second to last night of this stage. He didn't have him winning it at that point, but then I believe he did change that by Monday.
He did change it.
Just saw the error in my ways.
Yeah,
Hey, it could be worse, Cam. We sat here and did a full show preview for the seniors last week. By the time I gave Lee my predictions for the website, they were completely different, and I nearly got it right.
Yeah, I can't really take that much credit for getting it right either. I picked him 8 times.
Predicted it 13 times in 16 weeks. Law of averages says you were going to get it right before Michael Smith wins a major.
Yeah, as we know, though, you're only as good as your last selection.
Yeah, something like that. You're bad. Let's hear it from Michael Smith then, after he finally got over the line in one of these Premier League phase nights.
And to finally come off that board saying 0, it was only me without a win, so finally to get one, yeah, it means to me everything. It means a lot to me.
Oh, that was a lot shorter than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, really strong words from Bullyboy. I think his interview on TV was perhaps more telling. The way that he instantly said that will shut the trolls up. You can just see from the emotion when that final dart went in, all the way through that interview, just how much perhaps the pressure of us sitting here say he's going to win a big one, he has to do it, and the amount of finals he's now been in and not got over the line, the fact that those comments build up on social media as well, just how much they weigh on this man's shoulders whenever he's up there in a position to go and pick up a bit of silverware.
Yeah, but a lot of it, he seems to put on himself. Unfortunately, in the world of professional sports people, there's a lot of trolls. There's a lot of people who are living that. But there's a lot of players who you don't see openly air it and see that it is playing on their minds. Following that win and that interview, it seems like it does play on Michael Smith's mind. Looking at the league table and seeing that you're only man on 0, that's yourself putting yourself under pressure. But when you're saying in these interviews, the trolls or people like that, means he must be down, he must be reading comments, must be seeing what people are putting. So he's then putting that pressure on himself, but to shut them up, which was in words, hopefully now will mean that he can switch off a bit from that, as he's proved that he can go on and do it against these players. And for me, as we were saying and talking about across the weekend, the fact that some of these big players, your top sort of 3, Derwin Price, Peter Rice, are losing to these more often than not because of positions in the lead, just shows that when it comes to a big game, that will play in the minds of the big player, not just Michael Smith remembering that, he's just done and beat Johnny Clayton, he's just done and beat Derwin Price, MVG. They do play in the players' minds. We know that it is, as much as they don't say it when they lose, when they win, they soon remind us of their current run against that player.
Well, indeed. Paul Sargent says 1 ton plus average on the night. That may be correct, but that's one more than we've had a number of weeks in this campaign. Yeah. They have struggled at times, have this field. However, this is how the table finished up. Johnny Clayton finished top by 9 points over his closest rival, Michael van Gerwen, helped by those 2 finals in the last couple of weeks. James Wade does hang on to finish 3rd and will take on Michael van Gerwen in the semi-finals in Berlin next week. And Joe Cullen, by virtue of that win over Peter Wright on the final night, does get over the line to face Johnny Clayton in the Allianz. Mercedes-Benz, sorry, not the Allianz. They're all the same. Couple of talking points before we hear from a couple of players. Joe Cullen, the recipient of 4 points this season due to players withdrawing on the night. Cam, you and I have discussed before as well the difference in the jumps between the amount of points you receive for each win as well, and how significant they may have been in the table if it was a little bit more unison, or it made just that little bit more sense if each win was worth the same number of points on the night. Obviously, it's 2 for your first round win, you get 5 for the final. It's just all a little bit hectic.
Yeah, it just didn't quite, for me, it didn't quite work. You either go with 2 points for a win, regardless of what round it is, or if you're going to have a round where you only get 1 point, having it as the semi-finals didn't really work for me. I don't know why that's worth less than winning your first round match. I had a little look at this on Thursday, ready for sort of Thursday night, in that if they was still going to have 1 point for a run and it's 5 points for the night for winning it, then for me that should have been round 1. And if that was the case, Joe Cullen would have been almost through going into that final night. He'd have been 4 points clear of Peter Wright, meaning Peter Wright would have had to win the night just to beat him, not just get through that one game. And even it just being 2 points for every game, Joe Cullen would have had a 2 point advantage there as well, which again would have meant that Peter Wright needed 2 wins because of the leg difference as well. So I thought it just meant that Joe was probably a little bit hard done by going into this, and he could possibly have had a little bit more of a level of comfort going into that final night. But we're through it now. We've got, realistically, I don't think in the end it would have actually changed anything. I think we would have still seen the same top 4. It just would have also given Gerwyn Price something to play for on the final night as well. But we saw the best player finish top, and I think probably the rest of it is pretty much bang on as well. So yeah, that was that.
As much as those 4 points may be spoken about for a while, about how Joe Cullen gets it, in a couple of years it'll be forgotten about. It'll just be that Joe Cullen made the finals night, however it gets there. And the fact that Peter Wright has had 2 chances to beat Joe Cullen in the last 2 weeks, when they know just how much is on the line at that point. Yes, it's a 16-week tournament, etc. But when you're getting towards the business end, you know how much all these things are worth. They have been the chances for Peter Wright. And look, as much as people might bemoan the situation, Peter Wright's lost the control that he had for so many weeks. 4 or 5 weeks ago, we sat there saying this is pretty much done, the top 4.
Yeah, it looked like it, didn't it? That was the thing, and we thought it was kind of all just the last few weeks weren't going to be much. But yeah, I don't really buy into the 4 points bit at all, really, that Joe got. That's just look at the draw. It happens. Like, if people miss weeks, so you can't then all of a sudden say, right, well, he doesn't get any points, but he's automatically through to just play for 3 points that night just because his opponent was out. It was all kind of, it is what it is, isn't it? If your opponent's out, then you get a bye. Same as in a semi-final or whatever other game it might be, where we've seen it at the Worlds, or we've seen it with the Euro Tour when Wade had to pull out in the semi-final. You get that bit of luck sometimes.
You do indeed. Right, let's hear from Joe Cullen. And there's a few points in the chat room about various questions on the campaign overall, and then we're going to predict our finals night between us 3. I know we'd normally leave that till the end, or do everything that's happened and everything looking forward, but we're just going to do event by event tonight. It's how I like to do things. So this should be Joe Cullen after he realised he was going to be in Berlin.
I think I'm more than justifying my spot in the Premier League. I think no one can argue with that now. Not that I care if anyone did argue, but it's nice to shut a few people up, and I'm in the playoffs now, and it's one of those. I think form goes out the window a little bit because it's all on the night, and I think whoever plays best on the night, I know it's cliche, but whoever plays best on the night is got the best chance of winning. Until you start doing it in TV tournaments, you don't really know that you've got it. You can do it in ball 13 in Barnsley Metrodome, and it's no one sees. But to prove you can do it on TV, grind results when it's not going your way. I think I've done that in the Premier League, and it's given me a different perspective on my game, because I know that I've got that side as well now where I never knew I had it.
I rate that from Joe. He needs to put a little bit more respect on board 13 in the Barnsley Metrodome, but other than that, I thought pretty well. It's evident that dart players aren't exactly media trained, though. In any other sport, you ignore what goes on online. You don't make comments about it. Yet tonight we've heard from 2 players in the Premier League, and their first reaction was, it's nice to shut some people up.
Yeah, but
the fact it shows that these guys are human, but it also shows just how the worlds apart we are from things like football, where you wouldn't even acknowledge comments online or anything like that. You keep them to yourselves. You're in a team environment. It's just so different this way.
It is, but the other side of that, and there's a lot of negativity, and we've spoken about it before, but the flip side of that is that the player involvement with fans and responding and talking to them. How many times do we see, whether it be a former pro or a current pro, have half hour spare and throw up a Q&A? When do you see that from your professional footballers? You just don't. So yes, how they look at trolls and reading messages that they receive to every single one and showing that it impacts them, for me, makes the trolls do it more and more. But them being not social media trained, especially from our perspective as the media, and speaking to the guys is better. But I also think from a fan's perspective, it's better to hear someone speaking openly and Joe not just coming out there and say, yeah, it was very good to qualify, my focus now is just on Berlin. Sort of one-liner, that's it. And you struggle for any sort of getting to know that player, getting that personality. And we've seen from Joe before, like then, he doesn't care what anyone says. He doesn't care if there's an argument about should he have been in and should he not. Because he's now deserved his place in this Premier League by getting to that semi-final. And he's got 2 games to go on and potentially lift it. If not, he's got 6 months then to earn his worth to being there and then. But he certainly showed that he was the right pick to be in this Premier League. When you think of our world champion, our world finalist, and our world number 1 at the start of the tournament, and not in the playoffs.
Correct. And that brings us on to some points in the chat room. Anthony says, howdy lads, love Gary Anderson, but would Rob Cross have done better? I don't think you can ever look at would he have done better. Would Rob Cross have cared more? Possibly. Would Rob Cross have performed or fared better? He's in better form outside of the Premier League right now than Gary Anderson, but you look at Cross's last campaign in the Premier League and it felt very, very similar to Gary's. It was steady, it was mid to low 90s averages, it was there or thereabouts, but in those moments when he needed it most, it wasn't there. And there was a lot of 6-3s, a lot of 6-4s, a lot of 6-5s against Rob Cross in his last campaign where he just didn't have it. And Gary's campaign has been very, very similar, I think, Cam.
Yeah, and I think it probably has been. It's probably not a bad comparison, but do we think? I probably do think that Rob Cross would have done better. I think he would have been closer to the rest at least. Whether he got through or not, I'm not sure. But we have seen him playing a lot better recently and making finals on the Euro Tour and back-to-back sort of weeks as well. I just think he probably would have been. We probably would have seen more from him, but then again, I don't think any of us were disappointed at Ando being in there. We all wanted to see. We just probably a little bit disappointed in what we got in the end, which was not the best performance from him that we were all hoping for.
Indeed. What else do we have in the chat room? Back to what Lee just said. You could arguably say that the 4 names at the bottom are stronger names than the top 4. But traditionally, and prediction-wise at the start of the campaign, if you told me it was going to finish this way up or the other way up, I'd probably back the other way up just that little bit more, Lee.
Yes, definitely. That says your world finalists, your world number one, as he was at the time at the start of the Premier League, Derwin Price. And let's be honest, Gary Anderson, to Tam's point, yeah, a few people did want to see him in here. Yeah, Rob Cross should have been in the Premier League. I'm unsure on should he have been better, but I would have done with the bottom four straight away. I can't remember what I predicted. I can't remember what I predicted last week, never mind, at the start of the Premier League. But I'm fairly sure that I'd have had Peter Wright and Derwin Price in my top, especially how driven Peter Wright was to go on and lift this Premier League this year. They would have definitely been in my top four. And there would have been plenty of others who probably won't admit it like I am. They're still trying to work on that to the fact. But fair play to Joe, fair play. Clayton and MVG would probably be two of the others with the year that, especially Clayton had last year. But Wade wouldn't have been in many of Pitts and probably would have been around that 7th and 8th spot. And Joe, I said many, I didn't say all. And then, if we're being honest, how many people had Joe Cullen in their top four? Probably not many at all, especially with James Wade. They would have, without once then going back and looking at favourites, I'm guessing Anderson, Wade and Cullen were probably favourites to finish 6th, 7th and 8th. So for two of them to finish in the top four is a great achievement.
Completely agree. We'll move on a little bit because we do have a little bit more to do, which involves choosing our winners. We booted Cam off the Fallout Bar on Thursday night because myself and Lee were together, and now you still get a chance to pick it, Cam.
There we go. Well, that's it.
I mean, Lee, we neglected. Lee, it's almost like I planned this because we didn't do a prediction on Thursday night. Still managed to talk for about an hour on the show, and now we get to do it here for everybody. No second chances. Unless we're going to do another prediction piece for the website, and I'm going to change my mind again. Game number one, gents. Joe Cullen against Johnny Clayton, the number one seed, the defending champion. As you said, we are not neglecting to say that an awful lot at the minute. Best of 19 legs. And as you're the closest to me, Lee, you get to pick first.
Just semi-final one?
Yes, please.
Johnny Clayton. I can't see the man. I know he is, as we've seen it on the Euro Tour. We've seen it with the Premier League final last week with Michael Smith. But he's just at the moment, he's just that name that you can't seem to bat against. And I can't see Joe getting the better of him. However, I think both semi-finals have potential to be long games, and I think this one will be as well. So I'm then Johnny Clayton to win 10-7.
Cameron.
I like an underdog that sneaks in on the last day to go and have a really good go. And I don't think Johnny's playing his best stuff at the moment, as much as he keeps winning. I think Joe's going to really fancy this, and I think it's going to be tight. I'm going to be really tight. Joe Cullen gets over the line 10-9.
Going all the way. And he gets
All
over the
the
line
way.
in the deciding leg in which he will not have the throw.
Correct.
Bravery. I am going to go with Mr. Boyce. I think Johnny Clayton gets over the line, makes it to another final. He has been the standout performer in this Premier League campaign so far. You don't make half the finals in a format like this without just having something about you. He's not been the best on the Euro Tour the last couple of weeks, which has been the concern. But the fact he's then rocked back up to a Premier League stage and gone to finals again, and I think the longer format will just suit Johnny Clayton. He can have that little bit of a blip, but it gives him more time to reel off something absolutely ridiculous. And because of that, I'm going to say he wins this one 10-6. Game number two, gents, has an interesting undertone to this because you could genuinely make a point that in, 14 days, the two most informed players in this Final Four are playing each other, and the two that are out of form face off each other, and that is Michael Van Gerwen and James Wade. We know Wade, he spent some time in hospital. He struggled for form the last couple of weeks. Van Gerwen had a news announcement today that we're going to talk about a little bit later on, but he is set to undergo surgery on a carpal tunnel injury on his wrist that he's been managing for a considerable amount of time now. Two players that are not at their peak going into this, knowing that a win here wrapped up some prize money, but that might just about be it on the night, Cam.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tough one, this, to know where to go. In that we've seen James Wade struggle the last couple of weeks since he's come back, and we now know what we know about Van Gerwen in terms of his injury. I just still think he's probably got enough of a level to get through this game, unless we see Wade back to the form of before him getting ill. Even with the injury, we've still seen him put in some class performances, and if he's been managing this for a long time, it kind of makes those a little bit more impressive as well, to be honest. Some of the nights we've seen from him, I just think he'll have too much for Wade, and I think Wade's that far off it right now compared to what we usually see from him. I don't think he'll be able to get near MVG over the longer distance, and I think we see him winning fairly easily in terms of winning it 10-5 maybe.
2 weeks for Wadey to get ready, Lee. Do you think it's long enough, including the fact he's got to travel an awful lot in that time?
No. I'm down for the same scoreline as the first game, and I'm down 10-7. I think MVG has still got that top performance in him. We've seen one of those the weekend. I'm just not sure on James Wade. Obviously, we know what happened a couple of weeks back. So into that detail, I just think MVG is playing the better. So I'm going 10-7. However, if it goes past that 17 and it's tighter, then you have to probably fancy Wade, because he knows how to win those type of games. But MVG 10-7.
I'm going to shock a few people here and say Van Gerwen wins this one 10-6. If Wade had 2 weeks at home with a couple of Pro Tours instead to prepare, then I think I'm going Wade. But the fact they're now travelling to America, and they're not in Copenhagen after that before they return.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly busy couple of weeks with a lot of travel, a lot of media responsibilities that mean not an awful lot of time on the practice board. And that's my concern here for James Wade. So I'm going to say Van Gerwen wins this one 10-6 and sets up that final with Johnny Clayton, the number 1, against the number 2. From your finalists, gents, let's hear who wins it. Reminder, first to 11.
Who's going first?
That sounds like you're ready, Cam, so well volunteered.
Yeah, definitely wasn't. But we'll just do what we usually do, and we'll just have a little waffle for a moment, talk about some nonsense for a minute, make it sound a little bit like I know what I'm talking about, and then just pick a winner. So
Michael Smith.
Yeah, I think Michael Smith's going to win it. I think Joe Cullen just outlasts him, and I think we've seen it a lot from Van Gerwen over the course of this, that he doesn't back up a performance all that well. And if he dips in the final, he's going to get beat. And I think that's what happens. And I think Joe wins it 11-8.
Mr. Voice.
One-sided final. Johnny Clayton 11, Michael Van Gerwen 4. Johnny smashes MVG and goes on and wins back-to-back Premier Leagues.
I too have the ferret, but I think it goes a little bit close. I'm going to say 11-7, 11-8, somewhere around that figure. I just think Johnny Clayton has been the standout throughout this entire campaign, and it's going to pay off for him when we get to the Mercedes-Benz Arena in Berlin. A few predictions in the chat room. Bob says Johnny Clayton beats Joe Colin, James Wade to beat Mark Van Gerwen. Malachi's got MVG 10-5 over Wade. Yankee Clipper Wade wins at 10-9. Anastasios says MVG zero composure on double should still score enough to compensate and get through. Anthony Regan says think it's Clayton, Wade, and then Clayton again. Matt says why is the final on Monday? Because they had to rearrange it. Berlin was meant to be one of the earlier nights in the campaign. Can't remember why.
2 or 3.
Why did it get shut down? Was it COVID? But still a bit late.
Yeah, they weren't still fully back to normal, and yeah, so that got moved. I think it was week 2 or 3. Week 3, I think, wasn't it? But yeah, it's on a Monday because it's just after the Euro Tour, I imagine, is the reason.
We do a German stint, don't we? We do that Euro Tour, we do the playoffs, and then we head to the World Cup.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just when they could fit it into the calendar is the answer to that one. Bob says Johnny Clayton wins the Premier League, beating James Wade. Maliki says MVG 11-9 Clayton. 11-6 Johnny Clayton, back-to-back Premier League wins. Clayton beats Wade 11-6 in the final, says Yankee Clipper. And Celador says, why are we not talking about Fallon and the US Masters? Because that's the last thing we talk about, in the hope that they've done the draw by the time we get on to talk about it. But it doesn't look like that is going to happen this evening. Right, we need to move on because we have an entire Euro Tour to talk through, the Dutch Darts Championships in Zwolle 2022. And let's absolutely race through some of these because, as you already know, myself and Lee were not watching an awful lot of this. Big Bad Boris started the weekend brightly with a 6-5 win over Steve Lennon. Ryan Meekel is playing some fantastic stuff right now. He beat Andy Bolton 6-1. Was that the match he started with 1-3-2 checkout, or was that the next one? I've just plucked that out of nowhere now.
Was Saturday he done that?
Yep. There we go. Spoiled that one bit of information I know about his next game. Instead, got Wade's 6-4 winner over Connor Scott. Ross Smith is starting to get the W's back in the column underneath his name. Not the best performance again, just under the 90 average, but it's more than enough to beat Kevin Benescam. We're seeing this an awful lot from the PDC guys in a minute. Is it burnout? Is it what? Or is it just that's the way darts goes sometimes?
I think that's probably it more than anything. I think, yes, they're playing a lot of events at the moment and there's a lot of travelling, but I also think that sometimes they just don't quite go where you want them, do they? And I think that's probably the biggest thing. But yeah, good to see Ross getting a win under his belt as well, because he has had a little bit of a lean patch.
Yeah, next up, Andrew Gilding started what would turn into a fantastic weekend for him, 6-4. And Leela, let's get it out of the way. The severe irony of the fact that Andrew Gilding went very, very near to winning a European Tour title on the one weekend that Dan Dawson is absent in commentary would have just been brilliant.
Yeah, I think Dan would never forgive himself. So that was it on to watch. Was he commentating on TAD, whatever it is?
Chase Tag, yeah.
Yeah, Chase Tag. So for him not,
which is just as mad as Andrew Gilding and the Dan Dawson love affair that exists anyway. So it's right up his street.
Very, very true. But obviously, this was before we knew the weekend he was down to having. It was a very, very good opening from Andrew Gilding. He was throwing some unbelievable stuff at the moment. So, yes, probably name-wise, it's probably a bit of a surprise to some. But performance-wise, he's thrown some very, very good numbers week on week for the ones he's in and the Pro Tour. So, it's no real surprise numbers-wise to see Andrew Gilding there after getting back on it.
Yeah, Daniel Larsson beats Mario van den Bogard 6-1, and Jelle Klassenkamp with a superb performance against Sebastian Bielecki to close out the afternoon session. Jelle is throwing some pretty steady darts at the minute.
He is, and I think he was obviously got a little bit of a boost earlier in the season, getting through the UK Open qualifiers and getting in there, and he scrapped a win on the stage, but it was good to see him winning on TV again, and he seems to be taking it now into the sort of the Pro Tours and into the Euro Tours, and he's looking a little bit like he could be getting back to something like his best. I mean, the average wasn't anywhere near what we know he can get to when he's at his very best, but a win's a win, especially a 6-1 one against someone as good as Sebastian Bielecki is as well.
It is indeed. There was a withdrawal in this afternoon session. I was just trying to remember the reason for it. Jim Williams had to give Richie Edhouse a bye through after his flight was cancelled at a very, very late minute. So the Chin missed out in the afternoon session, hence there only being 7 matches on that side. In the evening session, Mickey Mansell, he's picking up some good wins at the minute. 6-5 win over Niels Zonneveld. Jermaine Watermain, a 6-3 over Rene Idams. Mervyn King, Lee, you can tell he's realised he's not in the match play right now because the last couple of weeks he has woken up and started to pick up some results.
Yes, he has, and that's a competition that he's been in plenty of times. And the race for that, I think we're about 40 odd days away from that being there. There's only a few opportunities, especially for some of the guys who are not in the 2 Euro Tours that are left before that. So no surprise to see the Merv. We normally see people like Merv. I know Steve Beaton's far away, but we've seen in previous years Steve Beaton have a great Euro Tour run in there. So Merv playing some good stuff, and he's then one of them that then if he does qualify, it's because he's had a great run at the back end of the race, which means he's going into it in good form. Just one question though, Dob, around non-PDC tour title holders playing at the Euro Tour events. Guessing that's aimed at Jelle Klassen, who came through the Home Nations qualifier. Is that right?
Affiliate, I think.
Affiliate qualifier. So
it's
the reason
designed for those about talking. So,
yeah, that's just one of the questions that come through about why Jelle's in there, who's obviously totally not done a tour title, but has played on a couple of these because he's come through those. But back to Merv, playing some very, very good stuff. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him have a deep run in one or if not both of those Pro Tours in Germany in a couple of weeks.
Indeed. Simon Whitlock, Cam, repeat the question about Mervyn King. He has just realised he's not in the match play and he's starting to play well again.
Yeah, basically exactly that. And this is sure we'll get onto it as we go through this, but the man that produced probably the moment of the weekend as well. Later in the later stages, but yeah, when it starts to mean a little bit more, we see the level just go up a little bit from a few of these, and yeah, it's a good performance to beat Jamie Hughes and get himself through that first round.
Indeed, Callum Ridd's a good win over Martine. Clearmacher 6-3. Danny Nopper started a good weekend for him, beats Arjun Konterman 6-0. Danny Janssen comes through a fantastic match with Vincent van der Voort. That mullet is to be feared, Lee.
Yes, it certainly is. I was fortunate enough to see quite a bit of this one while we was at the late side, and it's one that had to tune in just because of Danny Janssen, what he's done this year, and we know that Vincent can just produce some fantastic stuff. And to be honest, the Dame overall did, yes, numbers-wise, wasn't suggest that was a taste with both in the 80s, but a very, very enjoyable Dame, and Danny Janssen's going to be one to watch. Vincent, I know we can. I feel like we can talk about that race to Blackpool now. We're only a few tournaments away. Vincent just sitting outside of that, but another one who can have a deep run and secure his place in there. But a very, very good Dame. But Danny Janssen is one to watch.
And Dave Chisnell wraps up the Friday session with a 6-2 win over Manus Rasma. Looking steady there as Dave Chisnell, 97 average for him. On to the Saturday entrance of the seeds and departure of a few of them. Looking at that, Christoph Ratajski, the first to fall to Andrew Gilding. Ryan Searle, good win over Ross Smith. Damon Hetter, back to winning ways, 6-3 over Scott Waits. Dimitri Vandenberg, is that back-to-back weekends first round losses on the Euro Tour?
Correct.
Not just a pretty face, me. Daniel Larson, a 6-4 win over Nathan Aspinall. That part of the draw really opening up. Callum Ridd, 6-1 win over Brendan Dolan. Danny Noppert, 6-5 over Martin Schindler. And Dave Chisnell, 6-3 over Jose de Souza. Stop me if I'm missing anything important, like the fact Dave Chisnell averaged 105.9 in that match against Jose de Souza. Superb from him, Lee.
It's not too shabby, is it, that?
I'm still not sure.
Too shabby at all. Especially from Jose, it's some good stuff. 50% on his doubles. But with Chizzy, it's just stopped this game. If he starts a game well, especially on his scoring, that first start is normally a player who can tend to follow and can follow very well, even though it's a very snatchy throw. But sensational stuff from Mr. Chisnell himself.
Indeed. Into the evening session, Cam. Let's talk a little bit about Ryan Meekel. He is threatening to do something pretty special in the game of darts right now. 6-2 win over Rob Cross, 100 average for the Barber, 40% checkout success for him, 6 of 15. He's playing some bloody good darts at the minute, is Ryan?
Yeah, he's playing really well. This was a cracking game, to be fair. I think it just came down to the finish at the end of the day. Rob Cross missed a few opportunities and got punished for them, but both of them averaging, like I say, over a ton for Ryan. I think Rob Cross was around about 98, almost 99 as well. So really good quality game to open up the evening session. And yeah, I think we all know how talented Ryan Meekel is. So we've seen big performances from him in the past as well on big stages. So yeah, if he keeps this up, he's going to be not going to be one that you fancy drawing early on.
Indeed. Joe Cullen, the next seed to fall against Simon Whitlock. And look, I don't want to go putting words in people's mouths, but you can see from Joe Cullen's reaction on social media, he thought he threw that one away a bit, Lee.
Yeah, he was very, very quick to go onto social media, so he was very, very disappointed to not follow up the high of Thursday night and go on and push on this weekend. So it was very, very disappointing from Joe not to be able to let that win. But then the Wizard, there's a lot more for Simon to play for in these tournaments, with him being just on the cusp of that top 16 in what is going to be a very, very tight race. Both, not just for the Pro Tour order of merit of people then into that top 16, but actually when you look at the main order of merit and you see that what could have an impact of a couple of those dropping out. Yes, your Chizzy, Ratoiste, Dirt are all safe, so they would still be in the match play. But it's very important to be seeded as well going into that.
It is indeed. Let's skip ahead via Dirk and Peter Wright to Michael van Gerwen, Jelle Klassen. A ridiculous performance from Michael van Gerwen, considering the fact he's just announced he's about to go under surgery on his wrist. 104 average for him. 6 from 10 on the outer ring. No ton pluses, but 6 maximums in 8 legs from the Green Machine. Cam, statement sent.
Very much so. And this was, weren't I saying before about Jelle Klassen and picking up wins? This was more like the standard we know we can see from him as well. It was a 98 average from him with the fish reeled in as well in this game. And yeah, still got absolutely handled by Michael van Gerwen, who just ran away with it.
Indeed. We need to talk about the next game as well. Gerwyn Price crashing out in the entrance of the seeded round, 6-5 to Mervyn King. And Lee, look, we spoke about in the Premier League how perhaps you could forgive him for averaging less than 90 in back-to-back games that don't really mean a lot. Euro Tours mean a bit, especially when he's still got the opportunity to close ground on Peter Wright for that world number 1 spot. But 3 sub-90 averages in a row from Gerwyn Price. There has to be serious concerns about him right now, doesn't there?
Yeah, there's just concerns about... I think there's no question mark to the fact that form will come back. It's just we're coming into a busy time. Yes, not all ranking events with the World Series, but he'll want to make an impact in America. He'll want to obviously start off the World Series campaign very well. He's got then the Premier League. Obviously, he's not in the Final Four, but it's making sure you're ready then to go into the match play onwards And the question marks are there around when will he get that form back? Because at the moment, it's not the fact he's losing names, because the majority of this field can beat anyone in this field on their day. It's the fact his performance just isn't there at the moment in games that mean very little in regards to the Premier League on Thursday, and also when it comes to the Euro Tour. There's just something missing there at the moment.
There is. Right, let's get to Sunday as quickly as possible. We do have to mention the fact Michael Smith, 6-4 winner over Danny Hansen, averaging 105.79 in that one. And he missed 9 darts at a double in that match as well. Think about just how good that one could have been. And Chris Dobie, solid performance from him in dispatching Richie Edhouse, 6-1. Obviously, Edhouse with the bye from the day before into the afternoon session. And this is where things start to get good. Boris Kirchmar opens the day with a 6-4 win over Ryan Meekel, despite... This is where Meekel hit the 1-3-2, is it not?
Yes.
In the opening leg. There we go. I knew it was there somewhere. It's been a long weekend, folks. Bear with us. Danny Nopper, a 6-5 winner over Peter Wright. A massive, massive win for him, averaging 103 as well. Danny Nopper is possibly one of the most underrated dart players in the world still, and I'm not sure how. Simon Whitlock, 6-1 winner over Daniel Larson. And as Chris the Ace Mason joins us in the chat room to say Whitlock's 3 balls was genius.
The only way I can explain the moment is I was sat on the balcony at Lakeside watching the Euro Tour on my laptop while you guys were down in the sort of media spot. I saw the 150 and nearly fell down the stairs, absolutely running down to say, get this on, rewind it, watch it straight away. And yourself, Helen was with us at the moment, was just all sat back doing well. And the only thing that we could sort of talk about in a similar way was probably the 1-2-5 of Phil Taylor when he moved so far over the octave, such a great 3 darts in the middle segment of the board. But I can't remember a time that's been done to win a lead. I know MVG's done it to set up a finish, but I can't remember a time in a professional
win a leg,
win a match.
Or win a lead. Obviously, I'm sure it's been done plenty of time in sort of exhibitions, and we've seen players do it in practice rooms, but for him to do it to win a game and then turn around and apologise, why are you apologising for 3 unreal darts? But I say 3 unreal darts. The unreal one is the first one, because that is perfection.
Yeah.
If Whitlock to have gone and placed
anywhere else in the board, he's going treble 20 tops.
Yeah, that is perfect. It
was just sublime, ridiculous, brilliant, genius, funny, daft. All the opposite things of the next match. 88 average. No, that's the wrong one. 90 average plays 91. Michael Van Gerwen falling to Callum Ridds after that superb performance against Yellow the day before, Cam. Not the best from Michael Van Gerwen on Sunday afternoon.
No, it wasn't, and I think this is the thing that we're seeing, and possibly it's down to the injury that we now know about, the fact that he's struggling to back it up and put these runs together, and I don't know how much sort of pain he's in with it, or how much it's really bothering him. But obviously there's some issue there, and yeah, he didn't back it up at all, and it wasn't the best game. I don't think Callum was anywhere really near his best either, but got the job done, and that's what it's about at the end of the day.
He did.
The next game, though.
The next game was an absolute belter. Dirk Van Dijvenbode 6, Dave Chisnell 5. 105 average from Chizzy on the losing end.
With the fish as well.
What he's got to do. Fires in a fish, 4 maximums. Just, that's how darts should be played.
Yeah, just absolutely incredible. Probably one of, if not the game of the weekend. And Dave Chisnell must not have any sort of idea how he's come out on the wrong end of this, other than a few missed shots at double. But again, we've seen someone average over 105 with 9 missed darts at a double again. The scoring power is just absolutely unbelievable.
But when you look at that, when you looked at his averages over the weekend were 97, 105, 105. He's only played 3 games. He's been defeated in the third one. That is not too bad at all across probably about 24, 25 legs.
Yeah.
That is just some incredible stuff from Chizzy, as we're talking about. He's a man who can produce those stuff, but to do back-to-back 105 averages on the Euro Tour is special. But to lose the game, fair play to DARTS.
Yeah, to do it back-to-back and one of them in defeat is just, that shouldn't happen in this sport, but it has, and it did, and that's the way things go. May says if he put that first start in hand, he would have put it where it landed for the Whitlock 150. The last couple, MVG did it on a Pro Tour and televised Eric versus Lowe in the Darts Athlon. Both did it back-to-back. I remember that one. That was some proper cock measuring from the pair. It was like, look what I can do. Okay, I'm going to do exactly the same. Where are we? Andrew Gilding.
It's not bad company for Whitlock to join, then, is it? Let's be honest.
No. Yeah. Andrew Gilding 6, Brian Searle 4, Goldfinger progresses. Damon Hetta 102 average falls to Michael Smith's absolutely sublime 111.1. And we mentioned earlier when he averaged 105 that he'd missed 9 darts at double. He missed 11 darts at double and still averaged 111.
It's just utterly ridiculous. I don't understand how you can do that.
He hit 8 180s and 8 140s in 9 legs of darts. That's just under 1 each in every leg.
I mean, the one thing you got to say that is fair play to Damon Hetta for getting 3 legs off him.
Yeah. 127 checkout from Hetta. Who's 3 from 8 as well? He's had 5 other darts at a double. Must be all those misses. Look, that's how darts should be played. I've said it a minute ago. I'm going to say it again. An absolutely brilliant encounter between those two. And then a bit of a scrap to round out the afternoon session. Mervyn King, 6-1 win over Chris Dobie. Again, not Mervyn King's best, but as you said, he's picking up results at the right time, heading towards Blackpool in the evening session, quarterfinals. Danny Noppert does progress past Boris Kirchmar. Callum Ridds defeats Simon Whitlock, who seems to just run out of a little bit of steam, averaging 88 in that one. Andrew Gilding springs the upset on Dirk van Duijvenbode. 104 average from Andrew Gilding against 101 of Dirk van Duijvenbode. And look, gents, the more and more I go on about this, I appreciate we're racing through it a little bit. We do have the World Seniors to talk about still. We only have 45 minutes left of the show and still an awful lot to talk about. But the more and more I'm saying 100-something, it's nice and it's a little bit refreshing to be calling these numbers out, because we've spoken a little bit in the last couple of months how the standard is waning just a little bit, or it's having a little bit of a dip, but promising signs here in Zwolle. Quarterfinal night, Michael Smith 6, Mervyn King 4. King actually finishing with the better average, but superb from Michael Smith in that one. Semi-final time, and this one was pretty one-sided. The gap in the averages in this is possibly the most staggering. Danny Noppert 7, Callum Ridds 2. Noppert averaging 103 to Callum Ridds 76. And I think this is a concern with Callum Ridds. His A game is brilliant. His B game is not quite there now, Cam.
Yeah, I think not quite there is probably a little bit of an understatement on this one. We all know how good Callum Ridds is and what he's capable of doing on dartboard. This isn't a bad performance. I don't really know where this has come from at all. Like 76 is, I would fancy him to do that with his other hand. Like, it's just a complete anomaly, and sometimes it just happens. But I mean, Danny Noppert played very well as well and didn't really give him a lot of opportunity anyway.
Yeah, 76 average with 100% on the doubles, including 2 ton plus checkouts.
He had a 158.
It is one as well. We spoke about Joe, who very quickly went to social media after his defeat on Saturday. Cullen did the same on Sunday, just saying he just run out of steam. He had nothing left in him to do so, and that'll be a learning block by getting to more and more of these. It's one game in sort of isolation. Yes, his A game and his B game are massively. I would even say massively apart. But this isn't it. Speed aim for me. It was a one-off. We probably won't see Talon Rid's averaged anything like that over the next 4 or 5 years. His scoring just wasn't there. He just wasn't himself on stage. But he's a young lad with plenty of talent, and that A-Dame is absolutely ridiculous. So a lot of credit for that in there, and fair play for Danny to fire in that 103 and just show those consistency levels, which you just touched on then, Bob. We haven't seen top performances really from the field recently, and just the odd 1 or 2 in the weekend. Danny even just getting to the final, threw in a couple. So it was good to see Noppy prove his worth once again in this semi-final.
Yeah, in the other half, look, Andrew Gilden had a fantastic run to reach the semi-final, but I don't think anybody can begrudge Michael Smith his spot in this weekend's final, given the run of performances he put in, just under the 100 mark in this one, and his double percentage, as high as I've seen it throughout this tournament, 50%, 7 from 14, in a 7-4 defeat of Andrew Gilden. And thus we had a final, gents, and when these two meet, they have produced tense back and forth encounters every single time. I want to say brilliant matches, but we all know the UK Open final wasn't great, but it was still tense for other reasons. It wasn't fast flowing, brilliant, 100 plus here, there, and everywhere. But every time they play, they match each other's level and they deliver tense, high quality dart matchups, Lee, that for the last couple now are heading in Michael Smith's direction.
Yeah, and it was one that, as much as Bullyboy had the advantage and a couple of lead advantage, once he missed that match dart the previous leg, sort of had that feeling, was it going to go Noppy's way? But it's probably one of those where we said Thursday's win could be bigger in the future. Probably didn't expect it to happen so soon. But Michael Smith was just solid in that last leg, and to start the tournament with a 104 checkout in his first aim, and to end the tournament with a 104 to lift the title is very good by Bullyboy. But yeah, really enjoying seeing Noppy and Michael Smith though head to head. There's plenty more to come from these two battling it out on stage.
Not just to lift that, well, I say to lift that, there we go, there is the trophy. There's a couple of other photos on social media of him putting the old ears up and shushing the crowd. Obviously, it was in the Netherlands. They were very, very boisterous in their support of Danny Noppert, but it is Michael Smith that picks up the £25,000 first prize and lifts the title on the European Tour. We have to move on because we still have an awful lot to talk about, gents. And this one we could probably do in even more detail if we really wanted to. The Jennings Bet World Seniors Masters at the Lakeside this weekend. Myself and Lee Boyce were there as part of the social media teams covering the event. The old boys returned once again. And first of all, look, I may be a little bit biased. I appreciate that we do an awful lot of work with World Seniors. But when you set up an organisation the way that World Seniors have, the first time you get a little bit of grace. You get that little bit of period where you go, it's your first time, we can forgive teething problems, we lost a scoreboard at the Circus Tavern, we had volume issues, etc. There were clear signs of a big step up taken by the backstage team, the production team, and everything that's associated with a television broadcast at the Lakeside this weekend, Lee.
Yeah, and it was shown straight away. We're there, and from a media perspective, from a fan perspective, being there on the Thursday, on the Friday, there was that feel of let's just hope 91 goes okay, that is anything can happen. We saw at Lakeside the generator go for the WDF, and it spelled one day that there was nothing at all the WDF to do about it, but it was just let's just hope everything runs smoothly. There was a lot of hard work though into it from the team. That says we're fortunate enough to be privy to that and be in the venue quite early on Friday to see what a great job they've done in completing the setup of that. But from the guys on stage to the guys at the back, it was just very, very well organised, well run. The players were very happy how it's done. There wasn't any complaints that I was aware of. Social media was very positive. Yeah, there's the one thing that's always going to stand out on social media is the performance of the players. That is the one thing that the people at the World Seniors can have no impact on whatsoever. But even that was at a very high standard. Yes, there were some games it dropped, and we'll go into the games in more detail in a moment. Yeah, that there was some it dropped. But you can see, and there's certainly a couple of players who we will sort of point out who are putting the errors in, because this is getting more and more competitive. Not just the field we've got now, the field we've got the match play, and also the names you've got on that Pro Tour at the minute are around that late 40s, early 50s age. Also a current WDF World Champion who's 49. Mace, who's in the chat room, who I'd seen put on Facebook saying about him putting more time into to qualify. There's so many players who want to be a part of it, because it's a very, very good event, or events, I should say.
Yeah, it is indeed. Yankees got to go back to some yard work, so we'll see you very, very soon, buddy. Connor Scott's just walked in, just joined us, not just walked in. Good to see you. A few years before you can play this one, but top job with the product launch you were involved in earlier on today, mate. You came across really, really well in that one. This is the total draw bracket. We're going to look at each session individually. Look, there are plenty of shocks in there. There are plenty of results that perhaps you could have seen a long, long way off. There are some scores that went a lot closer than perhaps people thought. But I think, Cam, that just adds to what Lee was just saying about the effort some of these guys are putting in now, and how viable it is once they do finish as a full-time professional dart player to keep playing darts in an environment where they can still be competitive.
Yeah, and that's it. And I think, like you say, there were some shocks in there. There were some that we probably didn't expect to see, but it just shows you that same with the PDC tour, same with everything else. You're not putting the work in, you're going to get beat, and that shows the standard of this already. Is that you're not getting an easy game in this just because you're a big name or you were one of the fancies. You're not going to walk through anyone, because everyone's banged up for it and everyone's putting the effort in, and you're not quite at it. You're going to get beat.
You are indeed. Let's look at the individual sessions then, starting on the Friday night. Paul Lim, the fans vote winner, opened the show against John Park, but it was a comfortable victory for the Canadian League. Just solid from Park in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that's all it was, really. Paul Lim didn't play too bad, but it was a very, very solid performance. Good start from John. And the fans vote obviously went with Paul Lim. It's always great to see Paul Lim up on that stage. But I also like seeing the wartime of John Part. And we're going to say that with quite a few of them, but it was very, very good, and a very good opening to Friday night's action and the tournament's action. But then the second name then sort of opened up the stories for me.
It did indeed. And just quickly, the fact Paul Lim averaged 82 and didn't get a set, I think, is pretty solid from him. Hopefully we see more of him on the Seniors Tour in future. Next up, Kevin Painter, defeated by David Cameron. There was a lot of talk about Kevin Painter and his potential showdown with Robert Thornton in that first round. This game, one of 4 preliminary ties. And he looked pretty set for a while, but Cameron stuns the artist up first. It's interesting, Cam, that Cameron only qualified for this because he was already at the Lakeside and defeated in the WDF World Championships. It just so happened the qualifier was on the Friday night of the Lakeside WDF World Championship. He popped over in an Uber for the warm-up event. He popped back on the Saturday and picked up the qualification. And he turns up and defeats one of the more fancied players to lift this title in his very first match.
Yeah, I thought that Kevin Painter was a very solid bet at the start of this tournament. I think he was around about 7-1, I think, for the tournament, something in that sort of range, maybe even slightly more in certain places. And I just thought it looked a really good price. But like I say, this looked a shock. But obviously then when you watch the rest of the tournament, maybe not so much.
Maybe not so much indeed. Our next qualifier from day 2 in Reading, none other than the Wanderer, Wayne Jones. He beats Roland Sholton 4-1, who again, it looks steady in the action with Roland Sholton, but then you look at the scoreboard and it's just not ticking over enoughly.
Yeah, early on in it, I thought Roland was throwing, and the action looked a lot better than what he did at the World Championships. And probably another player we looked at who probably done away and thought, actually, this World Seniors is becoming very serious and the quality is a lot better, and I want to make sure I'm not showing myself up. And I wouldn't say that he rectified that, obviously, because he's been beat by Wayne Jones 4-1, but it was a lot better action. It was a lot better to see Roland throwing more like we'd seen Roland before. But Wayne Jones had been to the qualifier, done very well, got through was it the last day?
Yeah, the last day. It was a tough run he went through as well.
Yeah, got through the last day. But for Wayne, was disappointed throughout the weekend at sort of all his performances, but in this one, I thought he played quite well.
Did. And then the final match of the night, Cam, the 16-time world champion, demolishes John Part, for want of a better word, 4-0, just under the 85 mark for Phil. I'll be honest, I saw that one going a little bit closer, especially after how steady John played in that first match.
Well, that was it, and he didn't drop off hugely from that first match. He was only probably a couple of points lower than what he averaged against Paul. And he got, with how steady he was and how one-sided that kind of was in terms of the scoreline, you were expecting this to go deep, and he just didn't. He never really got into the game, really, and Phil things, really.
Phil did as Phil did in his early days in his career. On to the afternoon session on the Saturday, starting with Tony O'Shea against Lisa Ashton. And look, Lisa Ashton, I thought, played steady enough, but I wasn't expecting this step up a little bit from what we saw last time from Tony O'Shea, Lee.
Yeah, putting a lot of time. Fortunate to speak to him late, so WDF, and he was one who was saying that there's opportunities here, and he's grateful he's got these opportunities of being invited and putting a very, very solid performance in what was a tough draw, with a lot of people fancying Lisa to that over the line, especially after the success we've seen her have on the women's series. But Tony was very good, and there was some big check-outs in there. I think there was a 110, I want to say, for Tony in the back end of that game, and some 15 and 17 darts to wrap up the game. So generally, it was a good performance from Silverbath when a lot of people were tipping this to go the other way.
It's not just the women's series, I think, mate. Lisa Ashton is the most recent PDC Tour card holder in this tournament. and that counts for something. She was playing with the big boys, if you like.
Her and Roberts, I want to say?
Yes.
Thornton as well?
And maybe Wayne Jones, or that might have been the year before. Terry Jenkins beaten by Richie Halson. I expected this one to be a little bit closer. However, given where they were in the draw and given just how well these two played at the Circus Tavern, how steady they were at the Circus Tavern, there was a big opportunity for the winner here, and it fell to Halson.
Yeah, there was. And like you say, both really steady in that opening tournament, and I think you would have expected this one to be another one that went close, and I was probably slightly edging towards Terry winning this one as well. But good performance from Rich Halson, one of the highest averages of the entire tournament, I think, this one. So yeah, just did a really good job on him. And
also dobbing this one for me, one of the checkouts, that 160 in the opening leg.
He did it again a few sets later, didn't he, as well? He had two.
Yeah, but to do that with the support he already had in the venue that weekend, to do that opening leg, they just stopped behind him throughout then. Coming up against a normal fan's favourite in Terry Jenkins, the house and just looked on it from the off after the disappointments. The World Championships of being on the run end of Martin Adams' special checkout night, wasn't it? Of just eating everything that he possibly did.
I think that 160 settled him down for the weekend an awful lot as well, because the issue at the Circus Tavern was his finishing. Not so much Wolfie's against him, but he had chances to pick up legs here, there, and everywhere. I've seen him go deep in Newbury, but throw away leads or have to battle. He won the first day of the Open Series in Newbury and was beaten pretty early in the second day. And throughout the first day, he was throwing away leads and getting over the line at the end of it. On the second day, he had a massive lead, threw it away, got beaten by Robert Rickwood, I think it was. And it was just the finishing. So to take out that 160 first leg up on that stage, his first time at the Lakeside, would have settled him down massively. Next up, Deeta Hedman against Colin Monk. Great to see both of them back up on stage. Not an awful lot to talk about during the game in this one. Colin Monk run away a 4-0 victor, though, to wrap up that. And then Martin Adams, a 4-2 win over Wayne Jones. Another tough one. And look, this is a good performance from Wolfie against the Wayne Jones that had already had a game up on that stage. And considering Wolfie's managing a proper leg injury right now, Cam.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I mean, it's probably not the best performance we'll ever see from him, but it was impressive in what he did in terms of just comfortably getting over the line, like you say, with what he's dealing with playing someone that's already a game in there as well, and played reasonably well in his first game as well. He's not had to be a sort of off form Wayne Jones either. Wayne Jones has played fairly well again in that game against Wolfie, and I think it was quite impressive, this one, to be fair.
Yeah. Into the evening session, Les Wallace with a full bagpipe entrance to the Lakeside stage, a brilliant moment in that one. That's available on the World Seniors YouTube channel to watch back, by the way. He defeats John Lowe 4-1, who I'm starting to wonder, gents, if John Lowe needs glasses, because his action is still, even at his age, one of the best in the world. It is so solid. The base is there, the action is just yet one bang release, and they just don't seem to go where he wants them to. And something tells me he might not be able to see, because I can't think of any other reason why John Lowe is still not banging in 85 plus averages and mopping up these tournaments.
Yeah, I can see your point of it. It's a great action to watch. It's just we've seen it at the World Championships as well, that the level just isn't what we're hoping for. Yes, we know with some of these they're not going to perform what they did when they was in their prime, but there's been a big drop off from some of the seniors, and I'd probably put John Lowe in that. It's a great action to watch. If I'm not saying to copy anyone, but if you're new to it and you want to watch certain throws, it's certainly one I'd be recommending people to see. But unfortunately, they're just not going where he wants, and Les Wallace got over the line and done enough. But just to repeat what you've mentioned there, that Wharton is certainly worth watching again, because it was an iconic moment to see Les Wallace step the Wharton with the bagpipes.
He promised me he was going to wear the Circus Tavern, and he changed his mind at the very, very last minute. But it was great to see it back here at the Lakeside. Next up was Trina Gulliver against Richie Halson. Obviously, Halson already coming through that tight test with Terry Jenkins. Once again, a 4-1 winner over the Golden Girl Trina, who I thought played a little bit better than we saw her last time, Lee. And actually, that win on the Women's Series recently would have helped that massively.
Yeah, I thought Trina was very good. It's hard to come up with them, as Richie has said. The support he had there, and also the fact he'd played early on in the day. He's been playing some very good stuff. Only played to come through and qualify for both events so far in the seniors, and one who was heavily tipped as well to delve really deep into this one. So to then come up against Trina, a lot of people were expecting the house and win, and probably not expecting the Trina performance on stage that we'd seen because of what we'd seen at the Worlds. But Trina looked very good, and I think, yes, we'll see her bat in the seniors, and I know it's one of the names announced today in the World Championships for next February. But actually, not just this, she's in a race for the match play for the women's series, and it's going to be one who's going to be there or thereabouts if she plays anything like that on a consistent basis, because she's still got some very, very good darts and can beat the best of them in a shorter format. And I think we've seen moments of that in here, but fair play to Richie on getting over the line against Trina.
Yeah, indeed. Next up, though, Cam, the big upset. The World Seniors Darts World Champion, Robert Thornton, beaten in the first round by qualifier David Cameron, who had already taken out Kevin Painter. The Canadian doing a job on the Scot, who just left himself too much to do by the time he woke up and got going again in this match.
Yeah, and there's probably a theme here again. I fancied Robert Thornton to win this one as well, a bit like I fancied Kevin Painter in the qualifying round as well. But really good performance again from David Cameron in this one. And like you say, it was just a bit too little, too late from the Thorn, and not quite at his best, but it was still a pretty good performance from him as well. I mean, they were both high 80s in terms of the averages, and on against most people, that would have probably got it done for Robert, to be honest.
Correct. And the last game on that evening session, look at the emotion from Keith Della in the bottom corner there, 4-1 winner over Bob Anderson. No finger point this time from Bob. Was a little bit sad not to see that one, but he did pick up a set against Del Boy. Not a lot more to say on that one, I think, as we can move on to the following day. Where are we now? It's session 4. Quarter-final day.
Quarter-final day.
It is quarter-final day. David Cameron, 4-2 winner over Colin Monk. This one surprised me a little bit, Lee, and I think most of the people watching it as well. Colin Monk wasn't great in his first round, and perhaps the pace of him just threw David Cameron a little to keep this one competitive for a bit longer than most would have predicted.
Yeah, the pace, and also, I know Tam's sort of saying there that he backed Fawns and backed Jenkins. He wouldn't be the only one who did that, and Cameron wasn't expected to thumb through those two ties. However, in this one, because of how Colin played the previous day, and thumbing through the qualifiers and having the recent experience on the late side stage, Cameron was expected to win this one convincingly, and I think that potentially played on his mind a little bit, because it was a slow start from Cameron in this, and yeah, the pace didn't help him at all. But it was just about getting over the line. Colin looked a little bit better, I thought, than in the opening round, but fair play for Cameron as I'd say, in the end, getting there when the pressure not only from everyone else but by himself was in that day.
It was. Talking of pressure, Cam, Phil Taylor led 3-0 against Les Wallace, and it was 2 multiplied by 10 plus 1. Surely. And then Les Wallace pinches a set. And then he wins another set. And then he wins the third set to force a decider, at which point Phil Taylor wakes up, remembers he's the former 16-time champion of the world, wins the first leg, and then wraps the match up with a 12-dart leg that included 2 180s. That's the power we've waited to see.
Yeah, he still just had it when he needed it right at the end, didn't he? But I think, yeah, it got a lot closer than we thought it was going to be, this one. One thing I've got to say is I'm absolutely loving the kilt on stage, whether we can get a bit of that in the PDC. I don't know whether that goes with the dress code, whether you can get away with that, but surely Peter Wright at the World Cup or something like that, we could see a little outing of the kilt. No? Not fancy that one?
He's not a true Scot, is he?
Big Hendo. Get Hendo with it on. Medium-sized Hendo.
Medium-sized Hendo, indeed.
But yeah, this one got really close, but then yeah, that final leg was a bit of magic.
It was an interesting comment after the match from Phil Taylor, but we'll talk about that very, very shortly in our other things in the tournament section. Next up, to Lakeside. I want to say rivals. They've been about an awful long time. They've been competitors an awful long time. They do get on very, very well. Martin Adams and Tony O'Shea. A solid solid performance from the Silverback, average just under 85. Once again, to beat Martin Adams 4-1. Lee, it felt like we were just waiting for Martin Adams to just click or do that one extra little bit special to make this a little bit more competitive. I know how much you love this game as these two of your darting heroes when you first started getting into the sport, and it was a good match and it was a brilliant watch, but Martin Adams just a little bit off the pace, possibly by that leg injury.
Yeah, I was sort of, like I says, I was around the balcony messaging you saying to me, mate, these first 7, 8 sets, whatever it was, does for me being there, obviously in a working capacity, but this one was just, I couldn't take my eyes off it. From a childhood fan of darts, these were two of the players I wanted to see. Unfortunate, really, to see that Martin Adams didn't perform the level that he can. Injury potentially playing a part in that. But Tony was a lot better, and for me, his performance of the weekend in this one. But it was one of them that, yes, there's a lot to talk around with the seniors around invitations, how many invites should there be, how many qualifiers should there be. And those debates will always go on, and it's always going to be about the right mix. But right now, for the World Seniors, especially in the first year, these are the games that I believe the more people want to see initially, and to see two rivals played a couple of times on that stage in the World Championship, now going head-to-head. And it was great to see Tony putting that performance and that over the line and beat Marty. Hopefully, I am a bit worried about the injury of Martin Adams, but hopefully it does that it resolves. He's adamant to go and see a few different people and try and get that resolved. Because not only is he massive for World Seniors and the levels that he can produce, that probably one of my favourite moments of the year was his chat outs then to Richie Halson in the World Championships. Getting 5 ton plus chat outs, I think it was in that day. Not just that, but what he brings to the live lead. He's produced some fantastic moments on that. 9 dar. There's just so much that Martin Adams brings to the game still, that hopefully he can let this injury sorted out and we can see him back on our YouTube channel, back on the seniors, and back doing what he does best.
Completely agree. And then on to the final quarter-final. Richie Halson again progressing after a 4-2 victory over Keith Della. Della won the opening set. I was going to say pinch, and it wasn't pinch. Della was remarkably improved to what we saw him at the Circus Tavern, and I think that's only going to continue to go up. 5 weeks until Hull. He's been putting the tournament practice in away from the World Seniors, which has been brilliant. Lovely little moment on that photo there. In case you forget, Keith, treble 20, treble 18, double 12. He doesn't like to talk about the fact he won the World Championship with a 138 checkout at all, honestly. Bit of a running joke everywhere he goes now. But a good match, one that was played in good spirits. There were a lot of support for both players. Good to see Della give it large after he won the first set. Richie gave it back at the end of the match. It was entertaining, and that's what we want from this camp.
Yeah, that's exactly what we want from this. It was a good quality game. It was obviously not probably one of the best 2 games in the tournament in terms of the overall sort of averages, but it was competitive. It was good. It was, and like you say, it was entertaining, and that's at the end of the day what it needs to be.
It was. And that result, by the way, guaranteed us a qualifier in the final, because it did turn out to be David Cameron against Richie Halson. But before that, we saw Tony O'Shea, I won't say obliterated, but it wasn't very close in the end. Phil Taylor just continued to run away with set after set against Tony O'Shea in that first semi-final. Look, Tony's averaged 81 in defeat there, but it's not to be for the Silverback up on the Lakeside stage once again, as the Power put himself into the final. That's a little bit more like it, Lee.
Yeah, it was. This was sort of the weekend, the best performance of Phil and probably the poorest of Tony. It was very, very one-sided, but a good weekend for Tony O'Shea, where he was at the World Championships to get into a semi-final, and I think the turnaround will help a few players. I know you've mentioned it there for Keith. I think the same applies for Tony as well, with the turnaround only being 5 weeks. But this was at this moment, social media, which obviously is where we're keeping our attention as well a lot of the night, was surely we're going to sit down and lift the trophy. Surely we are, because this performance was, is there anyone in the field who can stop him? Because it was just an all-round solid performance to get over the line against Silverback.
Yeah, and talking of all-round solid performance, the best of the tournament, in fact, from David Cameron in the battle of our qualifiers, 93.14 from him against Richie Halson. Won the first couple of sets. It was a constant attempt to fight back from Richie. And look, it's easy to say at the end of this, Cam, but if those opening sets go differently or they spread out a bit more, and Richie's not constantly chasing the game, I think we see a different matchup in that one. But take absolutely nothing away from David Cameron, who was superb performance of the tournament, immaculate under pressure whenever he was pressed by Richie Halson in that situation. Put himself in the final in look, I put arguably when I was working over this event, but that semi-final there, comfortably for me, the biggest game of both of those two men's career.
Yeah, it was huge, really, and like you say, it's that the performance from both of them. They both stepped up and lived up to the fact of this is how big it is, and they didn't crumble under the pressure. They both gave it back there. And like you say, it could have been closer earlier on, and then maybe we've seen a different game or maybe a little bit of a scrappier game, if anything, where we might not have seen quite the performance that we saw from both of them. But I thought it was really, really impressive from the pair, and the incredible effort from David Cameron to get over the line so comfortably, really.
Just Dob also on that one before we get to the final. I know we alluded to last night that the fact it had 7 sets, all 7 sets went to the third leg. David Cameron had a set dart in every single one of those. Just showed as much as 5-2 is the scoreline. Richie Halson put up one hell of a fight. And yes, with that stat, David Cameron could have won 5-0 as he had set darts in every one. However, Richie Halson took him all the way. And just probably shows, and I know there's a few people who are saying around the qualifiers need to be increased. David Cameron and Richie Halson have certainly helped that argument this weekend. And not just by getting to the semi-final, but producing that level of semi-final as well.
Yeah, and it was good to see some of the tour players attending as well over the weekend. They come down to watch at various points. Saw a few of them in the crowd, and hopefully see a few more of them in Reading in just a couple of weeks' time. A couple of questions in the chat room and comments. No one expecting Robert Thornton to get beaten in the first round, potentially not. Although, I can't lie, I did have Painter in that one. Jim McEwen not play seniors. He has occasionally, but it's clashed with the WDF for him, and it's clashed with a couple of other events so far. One of the event sponsors are in the chat room. LP Metal Detecting says, my big takeaway was how well he managed the final. Lesser men would have struggled with the pressure and the occasion. David just looked totally in control, which is where we are heading next. Phil Taylor stayed at his tournament average in this one, between the 84-85 mark, but it wasn't enough against the Canadian David Cameron, who lifted that magnificent trophy on the lakeside stage at the end of the day. A 6-3 win for Excalibur, which means he'll be back. Well, I say he'll be back. He'll return to the UK for the 2023 Seniors World Championship as well. He will be at the Circus Tavern in February as a result of this victory overall. But look, to beat Phil Taylor in a final on a stage where you haven't had the greatest of success, despite being there numerous times under the WF/BDO code, in the manner that he did, to look as calm, to look as composed as he was, and to take that opportunity is absolutely massive for him, and it couldn't have been won by a nicer man.
Yeah, with you 100% on all of that. There were just parts of that game. Great start from both to shut in a 180, led one, sort of set an expectation for a good final was going to be in for. But I think right now the thought should all be around David Cameron and what he did at certain points of that day. I think there was two very important sets for me, which was post break. He come out after the break, when one apiece and went 14 and 16, and then same after the interval went back to back. Went to 18 dart lads in that one on throw, and was just very comfortable. There was question marks because of how he performed at the same venue just over a month ago. Of under pressure, how will Cameron perform? And there's no bigger pressure than being on Lakeside stage of taking on Phil Taylor, and he answered every single question there. Yes, he didn't hit the heights of his semi-final, but we've also got to add to that David Cameron only had 15 minutes from putting in that performance against Richie in what you described as the biggest game of his life, to then go into what is now the biggest game of his life and to put in that performance.
By the way, go backstage, grab yourself a quick drink of water, a toilet break, then you've got a bull up and you're back on stage against the 16-time champion of the world.
Not bad at all.
I'd have been in the lake.
Yeah, from the tournament that we're talking about, there's not enough positive words I can say about David Cameron, especially on finals day. Yes, those two wins against Painter and Thornton deserve to be spoken about as well. But the level he then put in these two games and the pressure he had as being favourite in the quarter-final just show what a day and what a weekend it was for the Canadian. And what a touch as well, I think, to that. I don't know if it was planned beforehand, I wasn't aware. I didn't ask afterwards, but nice little touch for John Potter to be on stage as well, presenting that trophy.
I completely agree. Right, we are going to have to motor through a little bit here because I'm conscious of time, which means chat room, start preparing for the quickest question time we've had of the entire season. First up, let's hear from your World Seniors Master, David Cameron.
Exactly. Like I just set it up in the States. Like it's still trying to almost sink in a sense, but this is something that nobody can ever take away from me. And I'm just happy and grateful for everything and everybody.
The next one.
Yeah.
That's one thing. But now can you be World Seniors World Champion?
I totally believe it. 100%. It's, just give me that opportunity to get on there and do what I do. So if I show up, I'll do it.
Words from David Cameron. After that performance, who would bet against him? He does have another 6 months to wait, though. I'm not sure he's going to attempt to qualify for the match play in Hull because the qualifiers are in just 2 weeks' time, by the way. For anybody over the age of 50 watching, head over to World Seniors Darts and find all the information you need to enter to qualify for that one in Reading as we head to Hull in just 4-5 weeks' time, is it? I lose track. A few comments before we do move on. There's just one more discussion point. We're not going to talk about the US Darts Masters, unfortunately, this evening because we are running out of time and we still don't have the draw. So there's absolutely no point previewing a World Series event without the information of who's going to play who in the actual fixtures. But keep your eyes peeled on the YouTube channel. Phil Bars, he probably should have landed by now. I'm not sure on the time difference and how long it actually takes him to get there. If not, and he is still a few thousand feet in the air on his way to New York. He will have you kept up to speed all weekend, either via our socials or on the YouTube channel, with as much content as he can possibly grab from the Big Apple. I want to look at these guys and just how much it means to some boys over. Look at Bob Anderson there. He's just pinched a set from Keith Deller in a match where he's absolutely nowhere near. Look how much it means to him. This is what seniors means. I thought Helen Chamberlain this weekend was absolutely fantastic, as per she handled the naughtiness of the old boys brilliantly. Phil Taylor talking about his fire stick, Tony O'Shea talking about another stick, and I thought Ray and Bobby were absolutely superb as the anchors. Once again, they complement each other so well. They've worked with each other for an incredibly long amount of time. And look, it's iconic seeing that little bit of a handrail in the background, isn't it? We saw them in the studio at the Circus Tavern. However, just being up on that balcony in that view, that is what an awful lot of people in this country grew up on darts-wise. The next thing to talk about very, very quickly is the news that broke this morning from Michael van Gogh, and he is due to go under the knife and will miss the PDC World Cup of Darts, meaning Dirk van Dijvenbode and Danny Noppert will be the Dutch pair in all likeliness. The statement says he's been struggling for a while, a little bit of tingliness in his throwing arm, and he has carpal tunnel syndrome. The operation will take place on the 14th of June after the Premier League playoffs, and he's hoping to be fit in time for the match play. Explains an awful lot over the last couple of months, added to lockdown, etc. He's been playing through an injury. The fact he's still playing at the level, and look, we spoke about the Euro Tour earlier, chucked in 104 this weekend with a man that's due to have an operation to make him be able to feel his wrist again properly. Cam, it's ridiculous, but at the same time, if he's going to extend his career, it's something that needs to happen. We said similar with Nathan Aspinall, who's that situation has changed, but it's something that needs to happen.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's something you've got to get fixed. And what he needs to do as well is have the surgery, but then give it the time to actually sort of that it needs after that. Don't rush back into it quicker than he needs to, because you don't want to be having these niggly injuries that are kind of going on and keep recurring just because you're not giving it the chance. But we all know how important it is for these guys to be back on the stage and playing again. So it's about finding that balance, but also making sure that at the end of the day, he's right when he comes back and he can go on. And I think probably we will see him find a bit more consistency than we've seen over recent times, if it is the case that has been bothering him for a while.
Absolutely bang on. Right, one more thing to talk about very, very quickly. There's a couple of questions in the room about Live League this week. That's normally where Phil Bars comes into action. I don't have the list of who is playing this week, unfortunately, guys. But I suspect if you do have a betting account, most of them will already have the fixtures in place for tomorrow in particular to be able to see Group A. However, your Champions Week winner, Stephen Burton, picking up a cool £6,000 on Saturday night, coming through a quality field. The curse of Group A strikes again, though. Nathan Gervin qualifying nice and early, but unable to see it out when it came to finals week. As I said, no talk about the US Darts Masters. That does get underway later in the week at the Hulu Theatre in Madison Square Gardens. Let's just talk you through the lineup pretty quickly. Your 8 PDC representatives: Peter Wright, Gerwin Price, Michael Van Gerwen, Fallon Sherrock, James Wade, Michael Smith, Gary Anderson, and Johnny Clayton. They will do battle with the North American players in the first round: Jeff Smith, Danny Baggish, Matt Campbell, Jules Van Dongen as tour card holders, and then your 4 qualifiers: David Cameron, Leonard Gates, Doug Bowen, and Danny Lauby Jr. Gents, all set for a fantastic tournament, I think, in this one. However, be prepared to stay up late for it if you wish to see what's going on. The Delayed Darts Club is back.
It's a huge delay as well from what I've seen looking at with you and Phil yesterday. I think it's a midnight.
It's going as live about midnight in the US, but we don't get it until 5 the following day.
5 o'clock, yeah. So there is a huge delay. So we will have you updated live. Obviously, there's Mr. Bars is there. However, there is a huge delay. But what should be a very, very good tournament. It's the start of a World Series that has got a lot of people talking. There was an announcement today, I think it was, that Joe and Johnny are doing a few of the leads in, I want to say, Australia.
Yeah, they're doing the Australia tour.
Australian tour. So, and rightfully so, 2 players who obviously are in the playoff final. So it's going to be an interesting World Series. We're going to see a lot of Fallon over the next few weeks, which will be good, especially with my attention this time of the year is just all around the match play, and to have the women's match play as well is great. So to see Fallon in that, I think we are set up for a very, very busy few weeks. But I think the debate we had last week around the quality and the standard of darts, I think we're going to start to see that lifting. I think this weekend was the start of that when we're talking about the PDC.
Yeah, lots of dart action to come over the next few weeks. The Live League will be back. We've got one more Euro Tour before the match play cut-off, a few more Pro Tours as well. We've got World Series events, we've got the World Cup, we've got the last Women's Series ahead of that women's match play in Blackpool as well. Then obviously we do head to the Winter Gardens. It's just the time delay. I'm not sure if ITV is showing it live at midnight. I'm not sure it's going to gain an audience. They're just going to show it as delayed coverage the following day from 5 o'clock, we think, is how it's going to be set out in the UK. If you wanted to watch it live, it would be, I don't know if you could get it on PDC TV.
Don't know, actually. That's probably a good point. I'm not a fan of a time delay. It's not. I think you should still be able to watch it live if it's there.
It's up to the broadcaster as much as it's up to.
I would imagine what we might get with it is bookmakers showing it live.
Potentially, but that's not the best for everybody.
No.
Let's have a. Can't see anything on the news page, but I guess we'll get more information when they do release the draw as well, which we're waiting on, and obviously that'll be up on our website and across social media later in the week, as and when the PDC release it. Have we missed anything from our side, gents? Or we just wait for a couple of questions to roll in? I appreciate it's just gone 10 p.m. We were a couple of minutes late starting, so let's give everybody a few minutes in case they've got anything, deepest, darkest, burning desires they wish to ask us before we finish tonight.
Don't think so. Just one question that has popped up a few times around the seniors regarding next events. Qualifier for the match plays in 2 weeks in Reading, and then the first weekend of July, the seniors are going to Hull for the match play, which has got a 20-player field. The draw for that is already out, and had me looking at it already this morning. After yesterday, I done enough of my seniors fits, and I was already looking forward to the match play and some of the ties that potentially is going to throw up.
Yeah, indeed. The qualifier Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The Friday will be a ranked event, but it will not be an automatic qualification. And then the Saturday and Sunday outright. So we need to keep an eye across all 3 days of that one. And then, like Lee said, we do head to the bonus arena in Hull Friday, the 1st of July until Sunday, the 3rd.
I'm sure, Dob, the Friday now being a rant event has done down very well in the Mason household. So someone turns up very good on a Friday. Was it 104 in his last final?
It would do if I hadn't. I believe Chris is on holiday for this one. he couldn't get any unluckier if he tried. But I believe Chris is missing from the next qualifier attempt. Question from Matthew Macy. If Holland won the World Cup, would MVG be happy to step down next year like what happened with Gary this year? Now,
absolutely
that's
not.
something I hadn't considered when this announcement came. But as we said, it sets a precedent, what the PDC have done this year, by allowing the defending champions to skip over other players in the order of merit.
Yeah, but do we fancy, like with Gary, he doesn't like to travel anyway. MVG wants to be there and play. I don't fancy that he turns down his spot for someone else.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that's the question. It's not about MVG turning it down. It's should it even be offered to MVG in the first place if his country are defending champions and it wasn't him involved?
It shouldn't be. However, as there is no written rule, if Holland win the World Cup this year, if the question is, do we expect to see MVG playing next year? The answer is yes.
Oh, 100%.
Do I think he should be playing next year? Then the answer would be no.
Not after the decision made this year. And this is the danger with setting a precedent that we mentioned when they first said this. If that is going to become a rule, then fine. If you're going to use it as a one-off because it's a nice thing for Hendo over the other players in the Scotland team.
The one for me is not the Gary Anderson part of it, and I mentioned this the other week, is what about the rest of the Scottish players who should have been picked before Hendo in the current rule? Anderson for me, I wouldn't be surprised if Anderson says, I'm happy to miss it. But there's other players who, from what I've seen on socials, wasn't even in a discussion with the PDC about playing in that. He went straight to Hendo. So for me, I think it should be the two people who won it should be defending it. But if not, it should be the next two highest ranks. If one of them drops out, it should then be third, fourth, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I should say we expect the team now to be Danny Noppert and Dirk van Dijvenbode as the two highest ranked Dutch players in the PDC order of merit. Danny
nice
Noppert
thing to put
number 11, number 16. Well, that was my next point. What we just described with the Team Scotland would effectively be like MVG withdrawing right now, and instead of Dirk van Dijvenbode getting the spot, Raymond van Barneveld then becomes Danny Noppert's pair, despite the fact there's four other Dutchmen in front of Barney in the order of merit, including Jermaine Watermain and Martijn Kleermaker, etc.
Can of worms opened.
Absolute PR disaster once again for the PDC. But as they say, all press is good press for them. One last question that's going to come from Adrian Thomas says, would a Seniors World Cup be a possibility in the future? I'm going to say no first, and I think you both might agree with me, purely because the guys we're seeing now are trailblazers for a lot of countries to be playing darts at a modern level who haven't got more players that have reached the age of 50. There isn't enough of the old guys from enough different countries to have an over 50s World Cup.
Yeah, it's gone.
All I was going to say is there's a potential to do something there with a country versus country. If you did a World Cup or a sort of a Tri-Nation sort of thing, maybe there's something in that to do. Maybe 8 teams.
We've been begging for a Ryder Cup.
I knew you were going there then, and I was like, it was the first thing that came to my head then as well when he said
UK versus rest of the world.
Oh
There's
yeah, sign us up. Sign me up for that.
There's opportunities there to do stuff, but what I would say is there's a lot of conversation around how the World Cup is done in the PDC, and that it's not done the way that we would like it as fans. And the same with other people, as you can see the reaction it got last week from social media. There's an opportunity here to potentially do that. I just think that the seniors need to throw first before there's any major changes or any new format tournaments. Yes, if you bring in, like we've seen here, a best of 3 set. Yeah, if you bring in a double in, double out, something we've already seen before, then there's nothing new. I think that the brand has to grow first before we look at creating its own format with certain competitions.
But yeah, if ever there was an opportunity for that Ryder Cup style tournament to come into play, I think we've just found its opening.
Yeah, and I think
I think what would be quite interesting is a lot of that might rely on Barney losing his tour card again, because a team's captained by Phil and Barney.
Yeah.
With the rest of the players underneath it, that's where we get interesting, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you said, World Cup, it could certainly happen, but it's going to be a long way down the line, I would fancy, before we get to that stage.
Dob, a few quick fire questions for you. How many players are you having in each team?
8.
How many? Is it 8 invites, or are you having a couple of qualifiers in there?
Probably invitational. This one wouldn't be ranked.
Are you doing singles, doubles, trebles, fours?
Singles and pairs.
Not even trebles?
Nah, too complicated for TV.
I think that's the end of my questions for now. Now send the email on.
Pop to it. One more, I think. Andrew said someone suggested that Barney might end up taking MVG's place at the Dutch Darts Masters at the end of June. Interesting point, this one, because obviously, unlike the World Cup, where there's only 2 spots, there's 7 other players that are going to be invited, or however it works in those numbers. And actually, if you're going to lose Michael van Gerwen in a World Series event that is based on commercial viability, that's not a bad replacement when you've got 7 other players in the middle of it that are still going to be quite happy.
Yeah.
Job done. I think, gents, that is about time for the end of the show. We've overrun just a little bit. We do thank everybody that has joined us throughout this evening. If you haven't done so already, please do drop us a like on the video or on the live stream before you go, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of our uploads. Reminder that Phil Bars is in New York this week for us. Plenty of press and content opportunities before they get to Throwington Darts later in the week as the promotion in North America continues. Live League will be back very, very shortly. I think that's about it. A big, big thank you to you two for joining me tonight, and everybody that has done so in the chat room as well. We did it. We got there. We survived an entire show without Phil Bars and didn't burn the place down. But it is time to say goodbye. Thank you very much for watching, folks. We'll speak to you very, very soon.